Hi YouTube. I wanted to put together a quick video. Hey, before we get started, I wanted to tap into the vast knowledge of the silver community. I thought I'd butter you up before I ask the question. As you may or may not know, I don't Skype. I just never have. And my mother-in-law actually wants to start, for Christmas, she wants a webcam and to start Skyping with her son. The only problem is her internet connection is through Dish Network. So she doesn't have, I would assume that you need broadband to Skype or like a cable modem, and she doesn't have that. She has her connection through Dish Network. And I found that even surfing on her computer is kind of aggravating. It's basically like dial-up, used to be, but probably even worse. So I would assume that you can't stream enough to Skype, but if you guys know different, can you please let me know? Do any of you have your connection through Dish Network and you Skype anyway? Also, I had a free Redbox code for you guys, but I can't find it for the life of me. I know it's only $1.28, but it's still a free movie. One thing I usually do before I go to Redbox is I usually Google free Redbox codes, and I'm telling you, there's always something there. So something to keep an eye out for. So anyway, I want to talk about how my views on charity has been shaped and how I try to get the most bang for my buck. It's something that's important to me. You know, I feel like I'm very blessed in many ways. And you always want to show compassion and give back for those that are less fortunate, right? So, you know, I remember I used to like giving to those underdeveloped countries like in Africa was very important. But then I started to see that you know, a lot of the money goes to the corrupt governments, or the food just rots on the docks as they don't have the infrastructure to deliver it. And I was just like, you know, I don't want to sacrifice and give this money and have it go nowhere. You know, that doesn't work for me. So then you think about like the big charities. Here's the problem with the big charities. And I know they do wonderful things, and some of you may even have been beneficiaries of like places like the United Way, and that is just great. But here's the thing. I'll link a story here, or like they rank the charity CEO pay. The guy at the top of the United Way pulls in $1 million salary, guys. $1 million a year to run a charity. Okay, and that's just such a huge turnoff to me. It just smacks of financing yet another millionaire's lifestyle. You know, how much of my money is just going to go towards him? And it's a huge turnoff. It's not the spirit of charity to me. You know, I'm sacrificing. He's not sacrificing. He's just, you know, pulling in $1 million a year. You know, and on the backs of people that volunteer for the United Way and very low-paid employees. Okay. Huge turnoff. So I just can't justify my dollars going there. So what does that leave? Well, I'll be honest. I'm a huge proponent of giving to your local food shelf. Okay, and here's why. First of all, right now, the economy is nothing but a huge game right now of musical chairs. Okay, and it's really hard when you're playing musical chairs to scream at the guy that's left standing there because the chair just got pulled out. Guy or girl. Right? There's really, you know, and the data supports that. Look at food stamp usage, how it's just spiking. You know, as jobs become lower and lower paying, which they are, you know, this is what you're seeing. As so many full-time jobs get converted to part-time jobs, this is what you're seeing. And there has to be a huge psychological barrier that has to be crossed before you go to the food shelf. You know, that's something that, God help me, I never have to do. You know, I think about what that would be like one day to realize that my kids are hungry, and I'm sitting there looking at them, and I realize I have no ability to put food on the plate. That'd be a tough pill to swallow. It can't be easy. And I know that the food stamps really don't cover what it should. So people end up having to rely on the food shelves, and they're being strained right now. They're being really strained. This is the time of year that's really good too, because so many items are on sale for like Thanksgiving dinners, and you can get really quite a bit of of nice Thanksgiving items for really cheap, and that's a good time. Or soup or something like that. Just a few canned goods. It doesn't really hurt. Maybe a couple jars of baby food. The thing is, we all want to be viewed as compassionate, don't we? I mean, if I were to say to you generically, how do you feel about supporting the poor, those less fortunate? You're going to say yes in a heartbeat. Everybody does. But then when you really get close to it, if I were to really single out some people in your community and say, would you support them? You might be hesitant. Suddenly you want to scrutinize choices that they make. Meanwhile, I mean, in all honesty, let's be honest. In many cases, the choices that they make have led them there. So scrutinizing every choice that they make is going to be a fruitless exercise. You want to scrutinize how they spend their money, right? I mean, and look, I've done it. There was some Section 8 housing in the town I grew up in, and this is the whole apartment building was covered in satellite dishes, and every single unit had a satellite dish. And I'm like, well, and at the time I didn't have cable, and I was like, well, I don't have cable. how can they have cable? And the same thing with cell phones. I've never had a cell phone. I've never been able to justify the expense. And yeah, you see people that are going to the food shelf and they have a cell phone. So, I get it. That's all really hard to kind of reconcile, right? But here's the thing: the more you look into the benefits that the rich get, tax breaks for show ponies and corporate jets, you start to realize that, anything that happens at the ground level is a rounding error compared to what happens at the top, okay? It's just that it's closer to us. We can more closely associate with the poor in our community than we can, say, I don't know, pick your favorite rich guy. So I've been more inclined to say, you know what, I don't care if there's a little bit of fraud here and there. It's got to be a very difficult psychological barrier to cross to go to the food shelf. And you know what? I want as few desperate people in my community as I can. And that's one thing I've never been, guys. I've never been desperate. I've been a lot of things, but desperate isn't one of them. And I can't imagine where I would be if I ever considered myself desperate. Okay? And it's a place I never want to go. The other piece I would strongly recommend that you do if you don't have the money is to volunteer. Volunteer is something that they always need. And what's great is a lot of successful people volunteer, and you end up networking. And you never know when you may need that connection down the road for a job or for anything. You meet a lot of interesting people in the community when you decide to throw yourself out there and volunteer. And you know what? It could be something as simple as coaching youth sports. Okay, it could be something as simple as at the high school working in the snack bar during the football game. There's all kinds of needs for small volunteers, going to the food shelf, hand out food, that kind of thing. There's always a need for volunteers. So if you don't have the money, you probably have the time. And by doing all this, we all want our local community to be stronger. You want to say, I live in a great place. Well, if people don't volunteer and people don't help out the less fortunate around you, then things deteriorate. So can you do it all by yourself? Nope. You need other people to kind of have that spirit too. But that's my take on it. I tell you what, I love youth coaching. Man, I just absolutely love, seeing that kid get their first base hit, or helping out with football and watching those kids score their first touchdown. It's such a great feeling for them. And, the parents really appreciate it too. It's good to have that structure and discipline in a kid's life. So let me know, guys, when you give, how do you give, and what are your views?